What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the Grind City Media Studios. I guess we're in the Built for Tough studio, actually, here in Memphis. I'm Lane Whitaker. He's Russ Bankston, and we're talking about Russ's book, A History of Basketball in 15 Sneakers, and this is the podcast of that, right, Russ? Yeah?
Yeah, definitely. I was looking for myself on the monitor. I'm
There you are.
Narcissistic.
I flipped it a little bit with it this time. Today we're going to talk about the Nike Zoom Kobe 4. And I'm putting the picture because this is one of the shoes we don't actually have here.
That's my favorite one too, by the way.
Of all the shoes?
I think that's my favorite Kobe 4.
The colorway? Yeah.
Yeah, the Carpe Diem, which I've never owned a pair of, and I'm still kind of salty about it, even though it's probably my own fault.
The chapter before this, chapter 13, we talked about the LeBrons. This is chapter 14, and we're talking about the Kobe Bryant era. And this is another player that we sort of grew up watching and knowing and, covering and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And had lots and lots and lots of interactions with.
I mean, a lot of it's still hard to talk about.
Yep.
We talked about it off air.
Yeah.
But, this chapter kind of ends with his passing away. And I spoke to him
for this book.
It was for the book less than a month before.
Yeah.
I thank you, Molly Carter, who was Kobe's PR person, who was previously a PR person at Converse.
Before that, she was with the Atlanta Hawks.
Was she? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But I mean, I think I talked to her a lot, like when she was at Converse when they signed Dwayne Wade and Kirk Heinrich and, who else? It was a bunch of people from that 2003 draft. So when I wanted to speak to Kobe, I figured okay, I've known Kobe for a long time. I first met him McDonald's All-Star game or McDonald's High School All-America game in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
1996. He's 17 years old. I'm like 25. He seemed way more mature than I was.
Yeah. Probably was.
He probably was.
Yeah.
And, I got time with him and I spoke to him. I think it ended up being like 20 minutes. December 23rd, 2019, in the little quiet room in my local public library.
Yeah.
No one else was in there. I closed the door, talking to him on the phone. And it was right after they had announced him getting into the Hall of Fame, the least surprising thing of all time. Yeah. And at the end, I'm like, yeah, dude, the last thing I ever said to Kobe, as it turns out, was congratulations. I'll see you at the induction.
Yep.
And in short order, helicopter crash, COVID, everything was different.
Yeah. It sucks. It sucks to talk about it, and it sucks that
it sucks that he's not here.
He's not here
for all this.
We saw the Kobe Bryant sneaker. I don't know what we would call it. The sneaker. Well, first of all, he signs with Adidas.
You have this
weird stuff. Yeah,
it's almost a weird prologue. I don't even know how you'd explain it. It's like the first.
I was going to say a journey,
series.
like a sneaker journey.
Kinda. It's like if you have the first film in a series that has nothing to do with the ensuing movies.
It's like a choose your own adventure where somebody did it backwards or something.
Yeah, or you sort of have this blockbuster, Fast and Furious type series, but the first movie is like a Fellini film. Because Kobe signs with Adidas, Sonny Vaccaro again. Yeah. Adidas goes for all these young guys.
Yeah.
They get Kobe, they get Tracy McGrady, they get Antoine Walker, they sign Jermaine O'Neal. He wears this Feet You Wear stuff. And here you have, and I remember even at the time being like, what are they doing? You have the most dynamic, engaging personality who can jump out of the gym, who won a dunk contest, and your ads for him are him in a black leather motorcycle outfit looking up at a gigantic shoe. Yeah. What are you doing? Did you hire Salvador Dali's ad agency?
I remember at the time, we were at Slam magazine at the time, and those ads ran in Slam.
Yeah.
And we would see them and be like, huh, this is interesting. What is, and then some of those Adidas shoes that came out back then, not even just those first ones, but as you get to the ones that look like a toaster and look like a car and all that, you're like, is this really the way you're gonna push things forward here?
And there was one ad in particular, and I think it came out. It was one of the earliest ads for him when he was still wearing it was the top 10 2000 or the Equipment Elevation, something like that. And it was one of these things that it was him like dunking, small. And then it was all text. And it was all these question mark things. And it was like dunk contest, whatever, MVP champion, like all these different things that he ended up doing pretty much all of them.
Yeah.
Scoring champion. So like, you know, there was some prescient stuff in there.
Yeah.
And the earlier shoes, I think, were cool, like the feet you wear stuff.
Yeah.
Then they hired like an Audi designer.
Yeah.
Or worked with the Audi TT and like the Kobe, which was the first one like that.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Second one, not so much.
Yeah.
It had like a weird, like sort of shell toe. They covered the laces. That was the toaster shoe.
One looked like a taxi cab. The yellow one. Yeah.
The yellow one he wore in an all-star game, and like those were kind of neat. But the next ones, like they had these huge blank spaces. It was almost like brutalist design.
Yeah.
Shout out to people who cover architecture.
I had a pair of those yellow ones, and like they weren't really that comfortable. Like it felt like they were more like style over function.
They also ways. They creased in really bad places in really bad ways. And I hate to be the guy who talks about creasing because it's like, duh, you wear a shoe, it happens.
Yeah.
But like they creased bad.
Yeah.
And I think Kobe back then was really still, you know, you don't want to say it about a guy who like won championships in a row already at that point, but it's like he was kind of looking for a lot of external validation still. Yeah. I think our friend Ryan could talk about that more so. Like Kobe gave him his number at one point, and like Kobe would definitely like look at what people were saying.
But Kobe also like with Slam, like with us, like he wanted input into like the covers and the different, you know, ideas we had for things with Kobe. Like, you know, so many players, you know, we would come up with some idea for a cover and we'd pitch it to them. And they don't even know what the idea is. They just show up and do the photo shoot or whatever.
Right.
But like with Kobe, there was back and forth, and there was a lot of like, you know,
the one with the trophies.
Yeah, we had Slam covers that were shot that no one ever saw that ended up we didn't use and things like that. You know, I think that speaks to sort of Kobe's meticulous nature and you know, wanting to be in charge of these things and not know what's happening.
I think the Adidas thing ended.
Yeah.
Because like things went in a direction he kind of wasn't comfortable with at that point. And I think he did look at a lot of that feedback and, you know, fortunately for him, I think it was pre-Instagram, pre-Twitter. Like otherwise it would have been even worse. But he kind of bailed on that Kobe 2 during the finals and went back to wearing the Kobe 1 and the Adidas relationship more or less ended at that point.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't want to not even get to the shoe, but like some of this stuff is important. Like he went through this free agent year where he didn't wear Adidas anymore. And like clearly he was going to be a highly sought after guy. Yeah. So it's like, you know, and one sent him shoes in Laker colors. Reebok sent him questions and answers in Laker colors. Jordan made him retros in Laker colors. He wore all these different shoes and, you know, he would have been such a prize for Jordan Brand, but I think like at that point, and I think even earlier on, and like some of the stuff we talk about in this chapter, like I don't think Kobe wanted to have his name under somebody else's. You know, I think you even go to like his early days as a rookie with the Lakers telling Del Harris, like, if you get this Shaquille O'Neal guy out of the paint, I could really do some work. And Del having to be like, Shaq shoots like 70% if you give him the ball. Like, we're not going to do that. We just gave him $100 million. So I don't think Kobe was probably ever going to sign with Jordan. Like, I can't imagine Kobe playing regularly with someone else's, you know, silhouette. But
also, I think, don't you think Kobe, like, I mean, Kobe, he had this confidence and you know, in his ability and his talents. And he's not going to say like, oh, this guy's better than me ever.
Right. And I think like, and I do talk about that in the book too, where it's like, you know, the Jordan comparisons always aided him even early on, even though it was clear he modeled a lot of his game and even his mannerisms and his way of speaking after Jordan. But if you compared him to Jordan, you were putting a ceiling on him. Like the ceiling was as high as the ceiling could go.
The ceiling is the roof.
But it was still a ceiling. And I don't think he wanted that. Like, I think he just wanted to see how good he could be just as Kobe Bryant.
I've paraphrased you before because you said one time, and I this always stuck with me about Kobe and Jordan and all that like MJ kind of came along and left the blueprint for like a 6'6" wing guy.
Yeah.
And all these other guys came along, you know, T-Mac, Vince, all these athletic guys who could play that position.
Right.
But nobody really mastered the blueprint as well as Kobe did.
No.
And you know.
And like, you know, Kobe did some of the same things that Michael did that were smart is like Kobe as like a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, kind of installed that software for Kobe 2.0 when 1.0 still worked. Like he could dunk on anybody he wants, but he still worked on that low post footwork and the fadeaway. Like he kind of adopted Jordan's post comeback game when he was still in the beginning.
I think to bring this to the sneakers though, like Kobe's ability to sort of be proactive and think ahead and all that stuff. If you look at this shoe, the Nike Zoom Kobe 4, like low tops weren't really a thing at the time.
But to rewind for a split second, because I think we have to at least mention it. Like, so Kobe has
the
Denver, Colorado happens.
Yeah.
And the rape trial happens.
Yeah.
And Kobe at that point has to kind of divide himself because he has to defend himself in court.
Yeah.
Yet he flew back and forth and is still playing in all these games. Like the court became like this sanctuary to him because everything outside of it was awful. Court. You know, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at him like in that press conference with Vanessa and stuff like that, and it's just all like this
awkward and weird and
horrible, horrible things on multiple levels. You know, and trying to deal with all this. And I think if that doesn't happen, you know, he probably gets a Nike signature shoe from the start.
Yeah.
Instead, they do the 2K4, which is like that Huarache shoe.
Yeah.
He wears the he becomes like the face of the Hyperdunk leading up to this.
Yeah.
Like you get the 2K5 and then you finally get the Zoom Kobe 1.
Yeah.
And the Zoom Kobe 2 and the Zoom Kobe 3 that were all ways of searching, I think, too. Like the Kobe 1, like kind of that 3/4 cut.
Yeah.
The 2, they did like 3 different shoes for him when they were doing like these playoff shoes and a lightweight and a strong. The 3 has this netting, which was our old friend Steve McDonald who did the Air Force Max. Like he did that shoe.
Yeah.
But then like you get to the 2K4 and you have an older, I guess more like world wise or world weary or both, Kobe, and he links up with Eric Avar, and they do this shoe that, you know, Kobe's idea, and we didn't talk about this, but Kobe, like growing up in Italy, growing up a fan of soccer because it's inescapable over there, and he kind of wants a soccer shoe for basketball.
It makes, and in retrospect, it makes so much sense, right? Like looking back at it, you think, well, like all these dudes are wearing these giant high tops and, you know, these shoes that are like the Air Force One that's like a ski boot and all these shoes that, you know, the pump, which is huge and covers your ankle and doesn't. And you think like, well, that, you know, there's this huge risk in basketball of spraining your ankle.
Yeah.
You don't want to sprain your ankle. And then you think about like of all the sports that the movement is probably most similar to basketball, it's probably soccer.
Yeah.
Maybe American football. But either way, you're like starting, stopping, cutting, jumping, running, you know, back, forth, all these different things. And no soccer player wears a high top.
Right. And soccer players, they run all game. They're obviously doing a lot of change of direction. And like you talk about traction, like they're literally wearing cleats that stick into the ground. Like you would think if anyone's going to blow ankles out, it's going to be them. Well, they have people sliding at them too.
Yeah.
So,
but they tape their ankles the same way NBA players do. And, you know.
So it made sense. And the funny part is like, you know, I think for a lot of people, and certainly for people who were maybe teenagers when that shoe released or even in their 20s, like they wouldn't recall like the superstar or things like that. You know, I think even for Kobe, like if you look at pictures of him as a kid playing against men in Italy, that was like, you know, Kobe was a Jordan guy. Kobe was an Air Force One guy as a kid. So he wore like high tops. I think he wore weapons even back then. So I think even for Kobe, this was kind of a new thing.
Yeah.
And if you look at the Kobe 4, and especially if you look at the Kobe 4 compared to shoes that came after, like the 4, the 4 is super important. And the reason I wrote about it is because it was the first of those lower cut shoes. And it does have like still a little of the classic, like it's funny from back to front, like you have that obvious heel counter. You have fly wire that was a relatively new thing then, but that toe box, and Kobe talks about it, like that's more of like a burnished leather handcrafted thing. Like maybe not so much in that model with that yellow. I don't think any cow has ever been that color in its life. But you had like that sort of handcrafted touch to it. But it's funny because you look at the height of that shoe, and it's not as low as it could have been. Yeah. It wasn't as light as it could have been.
It almost covers the ankle.
They hedged their bets a tiny bit. I think the 5 was kind of more where they were headed, but the 5 was like all synthetic. Like 5 was a lot lighter. The overlays were printed on instead of actual leather. So the 4 to me was more of that classic construction looking to the future.
And it's all, to me, it's also the moment that Kobe changed things for everyone else by thinking ahead and thinking, hey, like why do I have to wear a high top? Like it's a simple question,
right?
You know, like why can't we make a low top that's as good as a high top?
And it's kind of like, you know, when I talked to him about it, he talked about having to like actually go to like Foot Locker executives and make them like stock it, because I think people had like drifted so far away from a low top performance shoe. Yeah. But it kind of became this like proof of concept, because where the Kobe shoe before that had been like kind of all over the place and trying different things, like he sort of zeroed in on that. And I think like a lot of late night calls to Avar, a lot of like watching documentaries about predators, like he watched shows about sharks. Yeah. You know, Kobe really got caught up in that and got everyone else on the same page. Like, and apparently Nike had been working towards low top stuff themselves at that point. So it kind of came together, you know, with athlete and technology. And he just kept chasing it. And then into like the period where they started doing fly knit and knit shoes that allowed you to do different things. Yeah. And at that point, Shaq was gone. Yeah. So it was like, it was Kobe's team. You know, that's when Kobe went and scored like, well, he scored 81 in the Zoom Kobe 1 on Jalen Rose. Sorry, Jalen.
No, they double teamed him.
The Toronto Raptors,
Sam Mitchell claimed they double teamed him. Watch the tape.
And Kobe did all these absurd scoring things. Like he had 61 against the Dallas Mavericks in 3 quarters and didn't even play in the 4th quarter. Yeah. You know, like he came in and dropped 60 at the Garden. Like he became this like old Jordan, you know, back in the like 87, like pre-championship days. And then
but then also the Kobe line, all of a sudden we get like it evolves to the point where we go from these low tops to he tears the Achilles, and then you get the super high tops.
He goes in the opposite direction.
Like
I think it was
boots.
like everyone expects one thing, you do the other. And like I think some of that was from like boxing boots and like Manny Pacquiao.
There they are on the screen.
Probably Ali. You know, it's like, but even this was a little bit different where it's like you have this high top, but it's not padded at all. Yeah. Like that's almost, again, like.
And it's very light.
The top was almost like Converse All-Star type, where it's like just a couple layers of fabric. And it's like, it's just sort of that feeling of, okay, I'm protected. And I think if you look at boxers, like obviously they're not running very much.
They're just standing around.
But you are like moving back and forth. Like you do have to remain stable. So, it was just an odd direction to go. And they always did do super low versions of those as well.
Yeah. And now like those shoes, the whole Kobe line, you know, we have Protros, whatever that is. And, you know, all these, they're
new
like,
technology in old shoes.
There was a minute where it looked like the Kobe's were not going to come back out, but now it looks like they're coming back out, and they're coming with different colorways and all this stuff. And the shoes, like Kobe, like really has like a real legacy at Nike.
And a lot of things went in his direction. You know, I think like low tops in that immediate era prior to Kobe, you had like, you know, Mike Bibby wore low tops. He would have Jordan do like low versions of retros even and like low top 5s and that sort of thing. You had like, I remember Sam Cassell wearing low tops a lot.
Yeah.
But like back then, like a low top shoe was basically just whatever the high top was with the top cut off.
Yeah.
You know, it was a drop top. I could quote a Nas lyric, but I'm not going to do that here.
Steve Nash loved
family show.
Loved low tops.
Steve Nash was the other one I was going to say. Like, and Steve Nash obviously came from a soccer background too. I mean, he played. His brother was a professional player. Like, you know, so he had that.
You know, the one Kobe story I always think about, and we talked just, you know, to wrap this thing up and talk about like Kobe's how he was. One time I got called in for one of these ad agencies, was doing something with Nike, and sometimes they would call me in to like, they would have guys get interviewed on camera, and they needed someone off camera that could get them to say what they wanted them to say, basically.
Okay.
So they needed someone who was like, who had some experience with these guys and who could interview them and stuff. And there was it was like a Dream Team jacket or something that they were doing, and they had a specific line they wanted Kobe to say, but they were like, I guess they were just afraid to say like, hey, can you just say this? You know?
Yeah.
So they were like, so he comes in and sits down. It wasn't on camera, but he was like recording it. And I was asking him questions, trying to lead him to the water to get him to just say this line. And I couldn't get him right there. And we were running out of time. So finally I was like, hey, Kobe, will you just say this? And I circled it. And he goes, oh, yeah. And he did like 10 different readings of it and nailed it. And I was like, what? Like, just tell him what you need and he'll do it. You know, like that's him.
Maybe it was Kobe. You telling him. Maybe the right person had to tell him instead of like someone at Nike.
Well, there was the Slam cover. I always tell this story too. The Slam cover where he had the American flag over his head. We shot that in Hawaii. And Atiba and I were out in Hawaii. The Lakers had training camp in Hawaii. And that was when Jerry Buss did the interview. Like literally while we were doing the photo shoot, Jerry Buss does an interview for the first time where he talked about possibly trading Kobe and like what would happen. And so like, I don't know about it until after Kobe leaves. Then I find out this other thing had happened at the same time, which is weird. But Kobe's agent at the time, Rob Pelinka, was like helping us set up this idea. Kobe was on USA Basketball. It was when he had first kind of like bought in, and Coach K was going to make him the stopper and all that. So we had a USA Basketball uniform. We had the flag and all this stuff out there for the shoot. And Pelinka was like, can you guys bring Kobe's barber out for the shoot? And, you know, these like Vanity Fair and these magazines have like barbers and makeup and all this stuff. This is Slam. Like we barely.
And it's one thing bringing the barber to like Secaucus.
It's another thing
bringing him to Hawaii.
Yeah, and I was like, we can barely afford to fly me to the shoot, and I'm writing the story.
Should have gone to barber school.
And so we kind of hit this compromise where we were going to have like the most popular barber in Hawaii or in Honolulu or whatever. Like, we were going to hire the guy for the day.
That makes sense.
So the guy comes, sets up. He's all excited. He's got like a book of all the celebrities he's cut their hair, and he's going to show Kobe, you know, like so Kobe will trust him to do a good job, just to like line him up. And then Kobe walks in and he has a perfect haircut. Like clearly he had gotten it done that day. Maybe he flew his guy in or something, but like, you know, you control what you can control. And Kobe was like, all right, these guys aren't going to pay for this, but I'm not going to let a detail slip through the cracks. And Kobe had taken care of it.
I mean, we're going probably over, but since you brought up Slam covers, it's funny that we both had like experiences with Kobe and covers, because the one where he has the snake around his neck, I was doing that cover story, and I got there early. It was like at the Russian Baths in New York because he was there to play the Knicks, and I got picked to be like kind of the
test photo,
but like also the snake tester, and we end up having this black snake around his neck, which I believe was a king snake.
It wasn't a mamba.
No. First of all, black mambas aren't black. It's the inside of their mouth that's black. And
I remember we called a snake handler, and the guy was like, "We cannot bring in mamba around any person."
Somebody.
Yeah, no.
But the test shoots, and I don't know if it was because I had pet snakes when I was younger, which is a story I'm not going to get into. But like, I ended up with like multiple like pythons around my neck because we did those early, and I don't know if we thought we were shooting Hulk Hogan or what the deal was. And then like the black snake, like they got him out of this like chill container because you want to keep him docile. And Kobe like freaked out, I think, a little bit in the beginning, like because it moved all of a sudden. Like, oh my God.
We have a video somewhere.
I mean, it was like a natural when he did it.
It pooped on Kobe, or it went to. Remember, there's a video of Kobe like screaming or like yelling because he was shocked that it happened. But
somewhere I have photos of me with the like pythons around my neck and like
in Times Square.
The whole thing's a mess. Like the facial hair alone's a nightmare.
There might be a snake still.
And if I'm saying that now,
there might be a snake still in that beard somewhere.
I'll check when we're off the air.
All right. Well, that's chapter 13 for us. Or chapter 14. I'm sorry. The Nike Zoom Kobe 4, and we've got 2 more chapters to get to. And so come back soon. Join us again. That's Russ. I'm Lang. We're here on Grind City Media, and we'll see you soon here on A History of Basketball in 15 Sneakers podcast. R.I.P. Kobe.
If you're looking for even more sneaker culture content, check out the Sneak Fest Show with me, Kelsey Wright Johnson, Sherman, Adam, and Jerry, live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. on Grind City Media YouTube and the brand new Grind City Media app.